Singapore Red Cross. World Water Day is held on 22nd March every year since 1993. Today, I have invited a very special guest with me. Hanafi, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Hanafi. I'm a volunteer for Singapore Red Cross under the Overseas Disaster Deployment Team. I've been volunteering in the disaster relief scene for quite a while now, ever since I was a student. I was fortunate enough to travel to Indonesia together with Carol and our team to learn more about emergency WASH. What is WASH? Is water, sanitation and hygiene promotion. So in disaster context. It was a very fruitful experience. I learned about the value of water, value of clean water and how to process dirty water to drinkable water.
So World Water Day celebrates water and raise awareness that there are many people still live without access to the water. So the focus this year is actually on groundwater. How can we protect and sustainably using groundwater?
Groundwater is a limited resource. All of this groundwater will flow either underground or into water bodies. We cannot really see it, but it flows underneath us. We are very fortunate because we don't really rely so much on groundwater. We rely on new water, which is the recirculated water, processed water. We have our beautiful reservoirs from all over Singapore.
How about in disaster area?
So in disaster area, that is where it gets much more difficult, much more complex. The most amounts of pollutants inside the rivers are from a runoff, especially when there are water runoff from rains or the flood. All of the fertilizers that contains sulfur and ammonia, it will flow into the rivers, which it might cause algae bloom or contaminate with heavy metal. The WASH team will come in and teach them how to clean the water so that it is drinkable. So water to be safe and water to be platable, it is a subset of each other. But a platable water is water that can be drank. For a safe water, the bare minimum of safe water, it needs to be free from viruses. It needs to be clean without causing risk to health. It needs to be free from fecal matter. And it needs to be clear in terms of stability. You don't want to drink a cup full of sand, right? The clearer the water, the less particles there are inside the water. Sometimes a clear water doesn't mean it's clean. Chlorine is very important because chlorine will actually kill off all of the pathogens, all of the viruses, bacteria that is within the water.
So in swimming pool, you have chlorine,
yes.
so you can drink as well, right?
Yes, but you cannot drink it in large quantity, but it is safe to drink.
Okay, so try to share your experience that changed the way you saw or felt about water.
The biggest reflection that I had when it comes to water is when I went for the 2014 Kelantan floods. I was fortunate enough to go over to Kelantan, Kemugu, where we try to do post-disaster work. So what we want to deliver is clean, safe and accessible water. We provide the filters. We learn first how to install, execute and also to teach them. First is operating pump and number 2 is fixing the filter system, and number 3 is to check whether or not the water is safe to drink.
Alright, so one piece of advice you would give to all of us on World Water Day today.
So this is not an advice, this is a reminder to me. And I believe that each and every one of you also already know this, to be aware. What is aware? Aware about what? Aware about the water that we consume. This large amount of water is actually a privilege for us. When we turn on our tap, what flows is clear, clean water. We can drink it confidently without being scared or being worried that it is dirty or it will cause health effect on us. We have so much ease when it comes to the accessibility of water. We have the ability and accessibility to have this kind of amount, and this is actually a privilege. Once we are aware about how much we use and how fortunate we are, hopefully that we can be thankful and be able to reduce, like consciously reduce, so that we can save the water and not spend the water willingly.
Life would not be possible without groundwater. Am I right to say that? Just like we mentioned just now. So almost all the liquid fresh water in the world is groundwater, as you mentioned just now. And you mentioned also it is a hidden treasure.
Yeah.
And as climate change gets worse, groundwater will become more and more critical. Right?
True.
So we really need to treasure it, isn't it? And we need to work together with the rest of us to tackle the global water crisis and manage this precious treasure resource. So Hanafi, we thank you so much for taking your time here to share with us about water, precious water. This has been Carol.
And this has been Hanafi.
Happy
World Water Day, everyone!
Thank you, Hanafi.
Thank you,
so
Carol.
much.